Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Ms. Francois, going back to the disinformation campaigns that the Russians, Iranians, and others have ongoing, the FBI and Department of Homeland Security have briefed us that they're confident, at least at this point in time, that active hacking into our election infrastructure has diminished, at least for now. Although I am and other colleagues have worked to ensure that critical infrastructure is secured going forward, and this committee has done work on that as well. But I'm interested in the disinformation piece of it. Are you seeing increasing evidence of our adversaries conducting disinformation against individuals, whether they're thought leaders, journalists, politicians? For example, I could foresee hawks on Iran policy or Russia or others being specifically targeted during an election in order to change that election outcome and therefore change our policy and voices. Are you seeing an increase there? What types of techniques are you seeing, and where are you seeing it aside from the United States? One of the things that I've pushed is for us to share what we're gathering, for example, the Taiwanese elections or other elections, for us to create a collaborative approach with our allies as well. This is a problem with the West, and I think with free speech and free thought as much as it is with 2020 elections. I welcome your thought. And then secondly, sorry, what would you think the response would be if we took more of a deterrence measure? For example, sending the signal that the Iranians, the Russians, and other bad actors, they have their own processes and they have their own concerns, and often these regimes are more concerned with their own survival than they are with anything else, and at least demonstrating that we have that capability to interfere as well. I know that may present a lot of moral and ethical questions of whether we should have that capability and whether we should demonstrate we should use it, but we've certainly taken that approach with nuclear weapons. And so I'd welcome your thoughts there.
Thank you. I want to start by saying that part of it, yes, I am seeing an increase. Part of it is an increase. The other part is simply just a reckoning, as I said. Iran is a good example. We see a lot of disinformation campaign originating from the Iranian state, who's a very prolific actor in that space. Now, people often ask me, oh, Iran is following the Russian model. In reality, the first Iranian campaign to use social media to target US audiences date back from 2013, where we were asleep at the wheel and not looking for them. So despite our reckoning with sort of the diversity of actors who have been engaged with these techniques to target us, there is also an increase in both their scale and their sophistication. This is a cat and mouse game, and so what we also see is as we detect actors and their techniques, they increase the sophistication. They make it harder for us to do the forensics that we need in order to catch those campaigns as they unfold. Thank you for raising the question of deterrence. I do think that this ultimately is a cyber policy issue too, and therefore the government has a role to play. In the case of the US midterms in 2018, we saw US Cyber Command target the Internet Research Agency in St. Petersburg in an act of at least attempted cyber deterrence. So I do think that there is a governmental response too, by putting this problem in the broader context of cyber issue and cyber conflict.
Thank you for raising that. I think it's important for my colleagues to note that was a policy change under this administration that then allowed Cyber Command to take those kind of what they call active defensive measures in taking election security very seriously. Do you think, so I want to distinguish though between active defense and the potential at least, and sending the signal that we have the potential for offense. And your thoughts there on the United States also participating in disinformation, or at least a deterrent capability. At the end of the day, I think we can only do so much in playing defense here. We can only counter so much of this cat and mouse game. We have to fundamentally change our adversaries' behavior and put them at risk and their regimes at risk, in my own view. But I'd welcome your thoughts in my remaining time.
Yeah, I think 8 minutes to answer this complex question on the dynamics of deterrence and resilience in cyberspace. I will say what immediately comes to mind is, of course, a question of escalation. How much of these dynamics contribute to escalation is something that is an unknown in this space. So far, I think that the approach of being much more aggressive in both catching these campaigns, deactivating them, and publicly claiming that we have found them and this is what they look like seems to be a welcome move in this area. I think by exposing what actors are doing, we are also contributing to raising the cost for them to engaging in these techniques.
Well, that was well done.
Thank you.
Thanks, Francois.